Oregon's absolute obliteration of Oklahoma State on Saturday has Duck fans wondering if something is just different about this 25 squad in Eugene. Spoiler alert, it is. Plus, my weekly Holy Wallowa awards for week number 2. The leaves on the trees don't have much time left, but like old number 5 back there in that pocket, we got plenty of time here on that show out west.
This place has everything. In fact, the grass is damn green in Eugene.
That performance deserves a Holy Wallowa.
It's a feeling you cannot explain.
This place is louder than any other venue in the Big Ten.
This program is staged to compete and to win championships.
Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon.
And welcome to that show out west for that team out west. I'm Todd the Brew. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy Victory Monday. Happy 2-0 Monday. Happy Monday of Northwestern Week. But more on the Purple Cats coming up on Thursday's program later in the week. Today we are embracing positivity. We are embracing belief in what could be this season because, man, Oregon has looked maybe more impressive than any other team in the country, maybe not named Ohio State. They've looked pretty impressive throughout their first 2 games, but the Ducks are looking as good as anybody in college football right now. Look, you can nitpick. You can find things. If you watch the film enough times, you can get on the old rec specs that Horace Grant and Kurt Rambis used to wear, and that maybe your grandpa wore, still got those old glasses from the 60s or the 70s or something like that. You can find stuff. But when you play like Oregon has, there's a lot of positivity to embrace, and there's a lot of belief on what this season could become. We're certainly going to embrace that, and we're going to be talking about that during today's show. And, when it comes to Oregon looking as impressive as they are, a lot of people, some might call them haters, a lot of people might say, Montana State, Oklahoma State is clearly one of the worst teams in the Power Four. And those facts may be true. But there's something to be said about Oregon performing the way they did, specifically this Saturday, that made Oklahoma State look as bad as they are right now. So you got to give some credit, certainly to the Ducks for maybe things playing out the way they did on Saturday. Because, man, they look like an absolute machine. They look motivated. They look pissed off. They look like they're out there to make a statement this season. But more on that a little bit later on during this program. No doubt Saturday was impressive. 69-3 on the football field. So it's been impressive for the Quack Attack on the grass, but it's also been impressive here on the TSOW community as well. We just eclipsed 2,000 subscribers. You guys have brought the juice. You guys have brought the fire. Thanks to those of you who are flying within this kind of subsection of the flock. And for those of you that haven't yet, there is plenty of room. There is plenty of room here, so come on board and enjoy what I've got to offer for you. Now, Saturday's game had a lot more juice coming into this game than it certainly deserved to. I kind of felt that way throughout the week, and then the result kind of proved itself correct on Saturday, and that was because of comments made from Mike Gundy surrounding Oregon's resources and the financial contributions surrounding this program as well, and then Dan Lanning's responses as well. Here's what I want to say. I think now that it has all played out the way it did, I didn't think the comments were ultra offensive in terms of like football offensive. It's stuff that I think we've heard before within the Oregon circle. Oregon's got a lot of money, Phil Knight, all of these things. Like, this is even pre-NIL. Like, this is stuff that we've heard before. All right, this is nothing new, but yet Dan Lanning approached this from a masterful perspective. He did a masterful job at spinning this to motivate his team to be able to get them to play at a different level. And I said on Saturday, there's levels to this. And this team played at a different level. I said in the beginning, this team looks like they're playing pissed off, like they want to make a statement, and it's very clear that Dan Lanning maybe had this team playing pissed off, and he had this team ultra motivated. I want to play some sound bites here from Dan Lanning and Dante Moore after the game, and it will kind of illustrate what I want to say after these sound bites of how Dan just continues to get this team to play at a different level and never takes for granted a situation like this.
Told our team right before the game that, it never requires extra motivation for an opportunity to go out and kick ass, but it never hurts when somebody pours gasoline on the fire. So I felt like these guys wanted the chance to go prove who they are. And I'm sure I got a lot of respect for Coach Gundy, but his press conference, he's probably saying, "See, I told you so." Right? Like that's probably what his comment is, but that doesn't change the way we have to play to be a winning football team. And we have good players, one of our best. I don't know, Bryce Betcher played good today. He came here for a backpack and a T-shirt. So I'm really proud of those guys on our team that, have developed into great players.
You attack our head coach, it's like attacking, my dad, to be honest. It's like you're attacking a family member. And I feel like as a whole team, it's kind of, it hit close to home. And we knew that every week that, it's always going to be some trash talk happening. But for him to attack Phil, him to attack Coach Lannon, or attack our team, it was kind of personal. And this whole week we just used it as fire to make sure that we push ourselves and score 69 points. And we did that. And it was a lot of fire under this game. But overall, I felt like we were cool, calm, and collective. But Coach Lannon said, we're going to keep the foot on their neck and make sure we score as many points and try to break the scoreboard.
We know Dan Lanning comes from the Nick Saban tree. We know Dan Lanning comes from the Kirby Smart tree. And this had Saban written all over it. This had Kirby Smart written all over it. I remember Kirby. Remember last year when they're playing Texas? Heck, they're the number 5 team in the country. And he's like, nobody gave us a chance. People at your network, he's talking to ESPN postgame, nobody at your network gave us a chance, but I think there were some people that certainly picked Georgia to go into Austin and be able to win that game. But that's the thing. Like with Saban at Bama, Kirby at Georgia, and now Dan at Oregon. These teams are great. You have people like me telling everybody how good they are every single week. You got to find those little pieces. For Nick Saban, it was rat poison. I just mentioned what it was for Kirby Smart. And for Dan, it was these comments from Mike Gundy this week to be able to motivate your team. Because if you can bring that juice, if you can kind of twist that, people have thrown out brainwashing. People have thrown out manipulation as words of all of this. Because like I said, I didn't think these comments were overly offensive. I didn't think they were overly bad. But as a coach, it's your job to keep your team motivated, especially when you play a team where that isn't very good and you're much more talented than they are. How do you get your team to play to that extra level? Because if you're playing a couple of levels above due to the motivation that Dan gave them in week number 2, that's only going to raise their game in week 3. That's only going to raise their game in week 4. It's only going to raise their game week 7, week 9, week 10, week 11, week 12, and then eventually once we get to the playoffs throughout this thing as well. So Dan did this when, they thought he was going to go to Alabama, right? That's when the grass is damn green in Eugene and be like, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this. And I'm going to make this into a best-selling T-shirt. A T-shirt for a guy that wears the extra large size of T-shirt. I still haven't been able to find it. Couldn't find it online. I'm like, hey, let's go 2 time zones away. Let's go to the Duck Store and see if I can go to home base and find one. Nope. Couldn't find one there either. Although I did see someone walking past me on the bridge across the Willamette River. And I'm like, hey, I'll give you $120 for that T-shirt, even though it's only worth probably like 40. But that's what Dan has been able to do. Dan is cut from that cloth where he's just going to continuously be a motivator and continue to rise the level of this football team. And I absolutely love it. But to finish this whole point off, money is just a part of the equation. I mean, you can throw $20 million, you can throw $30 million at a roster, but that's getting the players onto campus. Then it's your job to be able to take those players and develop them into a new level. We've seen that with transfers that have come into Oregon, that have come to Oregon for a lot of money. You saw what Bo Nix was able to do. He elevated his game as a transfer. You've seen what some of these other players have been able to do. So that's just a part of the equation. Money, all of a sudden you drop $20 or $30 million, that automatically doesn't mean you're going to go 12-0. Okay, once these players get on campus, Dan has done a great job, and the coaching staff has done a great job at doing the rest of the work and developing these players into NFL draft picks. Back-to-back years, Oregon has had the most NFL players drafted in their history. All right, that's enough talk about money. Let's talk about some ball here. When you defeat a Power 4 opponent, by 66 points. Yeah, there's a lot of different directions and paths you can go in when handing out the Holy Wallowa Awards this week. Not only the winners, but also the honorable mentions. And I think it says a lot about the depth of performances. When two guys that had pick sixes at the end of the game, Jerry Mixon and Peyton Woodyard, did not get on the honorable mentions list. Should they be? Maybe. I think they both played good games. But it really goes to show the depth of performances and just the sheer amount of players that are playing above the line football, as Dan says, that are playing really good football right now. I can't recognize the entire team. Maybe I should. But we gotta kind of narrow this thing down a little bit. Let's begin with the honorable mentions for week number 2. I want to begin with Jade Lamar. I've been really impressed with him, and he's really starting to etch out that role as RB2 on this team. 6 carries, 87 yards, and a touchdown. He had the first touchdown of the season last week against Montana State, and even going back to the spring game. Remember, he had that run to kind of start things off. A lot of people say, oh, it's just a spring game. But we've seen Jade Lamar really continue to establish himself as a guy that can be relied on, especially when you get him out on the perimeter, man. He's improved so much. We always knew that Jaden had that speed, but he's really showing that once he gets into the open field, he can create big plays. He can create those explosive plays that Oregon is looking for in the run game. How about a 59-yard run that set up the De'Are Hill 19-yard touchdown run? He's one of 3 running backs right now that is averaging 11 yards per carry, and he leads the Ducks with 11.9 yards per carry. When he touches the football, good things happen. And that's why he's in the position that he is. That's why he's getting onto the football field early. That's why he's getting the opportunities that he is, because he makes the most of every single opportunity when he touches the ball. Will Stein is freaking in his bag right now. What he's doing with different formations, I was kind of rewatching the tape, and this isn't necessarily a Jade Lamar thing, so maybe I'm just kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent on Will Stein right now, but I wanted to make sure that I got this into the show. I mean, you're looking unbalanced formations. He runs to the opposite side of where, if you got 3 receivers stacked on one side, he runs to the other side because there's less defenders out there, and just creates better matchups. It helps out a guy like Jaden Lamar when things are schemed up, as well as Will Stein is doing right now. So props to you, Jaden. You have really taken advantage of an opportunity that maybe I didn't think he would have this opportunity. Jaden was one of those guys, Jaden and Jay Harris. Those were 2 guys, when I was talking before the spring game, I'd be like, these are 2 guys that could maybe transfer out during the spring portal, just because of just how much sheer talent there is towards the top of this room. Now he's the top of the running back room, and he deserves a lot of credit, I think, for getting to that point. On defense, I just want to talk about guys that are just never out of position. They're always in the right spot, and they're so sound. Bryce Betcher and Tatum Tuioti. Betcher led the Ducks with 9 tackles on Saturday, and then Tuioti just had another really solid game. 4 tackles, a tackle for loss and a half, and then a sack in this game for Tatum. Look, these guys aren't the most athletic guys in the world. There's a lot of other players on this team that are going to win 40-yard dash sprints, that are going to win vertical jumps, that are going to win a lot of these other drills that you might see at the NFL Combine, for example. But when it comes to the intelligence, that these guys play with, Bryce Betcher seems like he's always in the right gap, always around the football. Tatum Tuioti is always setting the edge. He's always right there. They never get their ankles twisted. They never get mixed up. They're always where they need to be. And it's just, you love to be able to have that reliability. These are guys that you can depend on to be in the right spot at the right time, and you absolutely love to see it. Staying on the defensive side of the ball, I thought Dylan Thieneman played a really good game. Now, I'm watching Thieneman a little bit, and I kind of noticed, he's creeping closer to the line of scrimmage. He's almost kind of in that, almost like a linebacker. Like, I'll call it a deep linebacker sort of spot. And then you hear Gary Danielson say he's kind of playing a rover position where he's getting close to the line of scrimmage. He took good angles when he was defending the run game in this one. And then he showed his range back there in the deep third. I think it was in the first half. I think he was joining Sione Lalea, where he comes from a safety spot and runs all the way to the boundary, and he's able to break up that pass. Gary Danielson said on the broadcast, like, if he's not there, that might be a completion for Oklahoma State. And the thing about that type of play from Dillon, that's not a play that some of these safeties of the past might have made. So you see just the talent increase that the Ducks certainly have at the safety position. So I love what the type of game that Dillon played. 2 tackles and a PBU. Maybe not the most gaudy of statistics out there, but he certainly played an impact throughout this game, and he was around the football. I love what Dillon did in game number 2 because he wasn't really tested in game number 1, so that was good to see from Dillon. Another guy in the secondary, Jaden Kennedy. I've been impressed to see him play at the level that he has this year. Like, there was a lot of young players on this team, and I think coming into the season to be like, oh, maybe he's the second guy at star behind Dalen Austin. Maybe he's more of a dime guy, but now it's more of a rotation at star between Austin and Kennedy right now. He was always around the football. He was flying around the football early in this game. Guys getting up off the turf, whether it was a run play, whether it was a short pass play, or whatever it was. When those Cowboys got off the turf, he was around the football. And that's what you love to see. So he's been playing good football to start the season, and I think he played a really good game Saturday against Oklahoma State. Malik Benson, 2 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Look, this is a wide receiver room. We talked about it ad nauseum throughout the entire existence of TSOW since January. Throughout spring, throughout summer, throughout fall camp. Okay, we need guys outside of DeCorian Moore, especially after the injury to Evan Stewart. We need guys outside of DeCorian Moore. They're going to step up at wide receiver. And Malik Benson, I think, is starting to establish himself in that spot. Malik has shown the ability to just do just a little bit of everything. I think we knew what his speed was. We knew him and DeCorian could offer all sorts of track speed that they love, of course, in Trackdown USA. But one area that people maybe showed a little bit concerned was the consistency of his hands. But the way he caught that ball on the deep ball, the bottom half of that football on that absolutely chef's kiss of a ball from Dante, yeah, I think his hands are in a pretty good spot, and he's catching everything that comes to him right now. So reliability over the middle, and with his speed over the top, Malik, thumbs up to you. Honorable mention here this week. Let's go to the trenches. Bear Alexander. Now, he had 5 tackles this week, which means what? He's around the football. He's got a nose for it. But when I look at Bear, and this kind of goes back, I thought he played a good game against Montana State to start the season as well. But he's just been a really steady performer in the rotation on the defensive line. Like, Amari Washington is clearly that nose tackle. He is clearly a dude, and I said it last week. He's playing at a much higher level than the rest of the defensive line. And I certainly believe that. That's not a downgrade on guys like Bear and Tion Gray, Terrence Green, and Aiden Breland that are in that defensive tackle rotation. It's more of a praise of where Amari is at right now. But when we talked about Bear coming into the season, especially with what he did in that half a year or so that he played last year at USC, where there was, hey, maybe he's taking some plays off, maybe the effort isn't totally there. That was something that I kept my eye on. And the effort's there, man. Okay, the effort post-snap, he is driving guys back. Right now, he is shrinking the pocket. He is plugging run lanes. He's staying gap and assignment sound. He's doing everything that he is being asked to do. And when you talk about effort, I think it's because of what he has around them. But this was an opportunity that Tony Tubiodi, Tosh Lapoy, Dan Lanning gave him, and be like, okay, things didn't work out at Georgia. Things didn't work out at USC. Maybe you've got a little bit of a reputation around you. This is your time. But we're going to give you this opportunity because we recognize the talent that you are, but nothing's going to be given to you. You got to go out and earn it. We got dudes in this room, man. We got freaking dudes in this room. And Bear Alexander, I think, has maybe seen what's around him, and they see the rotation and be like, dude, if I want to get on the field, if I want to be in this rotation, you got to do maximum effort every single play. And you're going to be able to give maximum effort if you have that type of rotation. You're going to be able to stay fresh. And Bear is doing that this season. So I think the competition has equaled an increased motor for him at Oregon right now. Look, you don't see him maybe shedding blocks and being the absolute monster that a guy like Amari is right now, but you don't see a lot of guys being at the level. I'll put it that way. But he's doing everything that he needs to do right now, and you absolutely love to see it. I had to put somebody in the offensive line here. Did put an offensive lineman on last week's honorable mentions. I had to put somebody on here. I'm going to throw out Emmanuel Pranon. You could probably put Alex Harkey, who is just an absolute bully out there, but I'm going to go with Pranon. He's fantastic in pass protection, had an 86.8 PFF pass block grade, and you look at some of those big run plays, especially that first 59-yard touchdown from Noah Whittington. He's the guy that helps create that hole, and he's doing a really good job getting to that second level, getting to the linebackers as well, especially in some of these run blocking plays that Will Stein is able to call up. He's a dominant force in the middle. I don't know yet who to call the best offensive lineman on this Oregon team right now. Emmanuel Pranon is in that discussion. I think Alex Harkey is in that discussion. And I think Poncho is maybe in that discussion right now. Isaiah World ain't too damn bad either. So there's a lot of names to be able to choose from, but Pranon I think is playing as good as any of them right now. Those are my honorable mentions for this week. But we got to hand out some winners. We got to hand out some holy Wallowas to 3 guys on the offensive side of the ball. So no defense this week. And I think it just kind of goes to show you that the defense just played really good, sound football as a unit. Maybe they didn't have that type of performance like Amari Washington last year. It's just as a unit, they're all playing together. They're all playing really good football. But let's get into my winners for week number 2. I mean, can we just hand 12 holy Wallowas to Mr. Dante Moore right now? I know it's going to be like a broken record, but we got to keep on talking about it. 16 of 21 for Moore, 266 yards, and 3 touchdowns. We said on Saturday, and we've said it already a couple of times during the show, there's levels to this, man. And we saw another level from Dante. Man, that deep ball is freaking beautiful. And that's the thing, like some guys, when they throw a deep ball, they chuck it like a mile in the air. This ball doesn't go that far in the air. It is just on an absolute frozen rope in there to Decorian Moore, in there to Malik Benson. I mean, they are just right on the freaking money. I said it on Saturday. When he throws the ball, he throws it in only a place where his receiver can get it, where there's no chance for a defender to be able to get his hands on the football. And I talk about levels. I think we saw him playing with next level intelligence in this game. You know, because they stretch the field a lot more throughout this game, you're using your eyes to move the safeties a little bit more. You saw that on the Malik Benson touchdown. Like, he's playing with that stuff that you see and you hear about on Sundays, right? When you talk about these pre-snap checks, getting guys into a pass protection into the right spot to be able to maximize a play pre-snap before the play even begins. You're talking about moving safeties with your eye. Like, this is stuff that they're talking about on Sunday football, and he did that especially on the touchdown to Malik Benson. I mean, enjoy Dante Moore while you can. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say right now. He's playing at an elite level, and we're in week number freaking 2 right now. So Dante Moore, holy Wallowa. I think he looked even better in week 2 than he did in week 1. Let's hand out another one, this time in the run game. Look, Noah Whittington only carried the ball 4 times, but he racked up 91 yards and he had a touchdown, and he had an average of 22.8 yards per carry. Like, he hits the hole with such pop. He hits the hole with such explosion. And then he's got a great one-cut ability. Like, when he gets out in the open field, he's not going to be the fastest guy in the world. Like, is he going to outrun a guy like De'Aaron Hill? Probably not. Is he going to run a guy like Jade Lamar? Maybe not. But he's just got such combination of all the skills that you look for in a great running back. Every run feels like the last run of his career. You can feel, I think, that he's been working so hard to be able to get to this point, being behind Bucky Irving, being behind Jordan James, seeing Mekhi Hughes come in, a high-level transfer that everybody was talking about. You can see that effort. You can see that when he runs the ball. And I love watching Noah running the football. And he's a very complete running back right there that Oregon's going to be able to lean on. And just every time he touches the football, you can expect big things. You saw it last week, and you certainly saw it this week. Like, if he's into that game, if he's getting 15 carries in this game, he's getting 20 carries in this game, he's going over 200. He might go over 250. That's how good he was, and it helps when you have the offensive line that he has in front of him. So, no Whittington, even though you only got 4 carries, you certainly deserve a holy Wallowa for your performance. Let's end, I should say, with Decorian Moore. And maybe this is the beginning of the legend that is Decorian. Maybe that's where I was trying to fit in beginning when I just said that. But 2 catches, 69 yards, 2 total touchdowns. Of course, he had that 65-yarder that was right on the money from Dante Moore on the deep ball, and then the end around for a rushing touchdown. Boy, every time he gets the ball, I get out of my seat. I mean, he's got that DeAnthony Thomas, that Kenyon Barner ability, that Reggie Bush type of ability where it's just like, you anticipate something special. Like even in this game, I think it was his second catch. He catches the ball, he makes boom, puts his foot in the ground, kind of hops back a little bit, and it's like, oh my gosh, is he gonna create a highlight reel play right now? Like you're on your edge every single time he touches the football, and you saw that twitchy athleticism when he gets into the open field. Get this guy, and they're getting him the ball in any way possible. Last week it was a short passing game. Of course, this week they got him in some deep stuff and really utilized his straight line speed down the field and the advantage that he has over others. They've gotten involved in the run game. That was his first touch of his college career last week against Montana State was run. So they're getting him involved every single way possible. They lined him up in the backfield next to Dante Moore. I believe that was during De'Air Hill's touchdown run. So they're willing to put him anywhere on the field. And once again, that goes into Will Stein just being so confident in what he's doing right now in the different formations that he's throwing out there. So I love the way that they're getting him involved early in the season. So Decorian Moore deserves a holy Wallowa. Many months before this season began, I was talking about just how talented this roster was, comparing and stacking up with some of the elite rosters in all of college football. I was talking about this depth and maybe, when everybody's looking forward to 2026, maybe we don't have to wait that long. Maybe this roster in 2025 can do something that no other Oregon roster has done before. And I got comments. I've seen your comments. People saying, let's wait and see. We've heard this hype before. We've seen this amount of anticipation. We've been burned so many times before. And I appreciate that perspective. I want to make that known. I appreciate that perspective. We've had people that have been through it all, man. We've had people that have been Duck fans for 70 years here in this TSOW community. We have people that have been Duck fans for 7 years. We've had people that have been Duck fans for 7 months. I feel like we've got a lot of variety here and thus a lot of different amount of perspectives, which I certainly appreciate. But for those of you that are maybe in the hesitant group or maybe in the wait and see group, the I've been burned before group, I'm not sure if these next 2 segments are going to be completely your cup of tea, but I'm going to say them anyway because Oregon has looked as impressive as anybody to start these first 2 weeks of college football. The national media starting to notice. Oregon number 4 in the latest AP poll. They started number 7 just a couple of weeks ago in that respective media poll. And you have people nationally talking about this team. I hear them talk about on Cover 3. It'd be like, ooh, that team in Eugene, that's scary. That's scary. I hear Brandon Walker saying, ooh, Oregon could be scary good this season. So they're starting to pick up on something that you and I have known for a while. That this is one of the most talented rosters in all of college football. But even saying that before the season and even saying that maybe week 1 and certainly week 2, they're performing at a higher level than even I expected them to. All right, I thought, okay, with the amount of new guys, they're going to need some time to gel and figure this thing out. They're going to maybe need a couple of cranks on the lawnmower. Nope, 1 crank and that engine is at full freaking bore. Full freaking bore right now. And I'm going to reveal what I call my 4 Ds of dominance for 2025. Reasons why I believe people are saying in the Duck community, it's like, why not us? Why not this year? I'm going to give you 4 reasons why here in just a minute based on what I've seen so far. But before I get into that, I think a big reason is look at the rest of college football and what's happening with them right now. Look at Penn State putting up, 34 on FIU? Maybe they haven't looked like the Big Ten juggernaut that many expected them to be. Long season, but they're not taking on the greatest competition in the world right now, and that's what's coming out of Happy Valley. Look at LSU. LSU is a team that narrowly beats Clemson. Big win. Clemson follows it up. and they get a struggle win against Troy. And then Clemson LSU has what, 23-7 win over Louisiana Tech, where they didn't look the best in the world. Texas doesn't look like maybe the juggernaut, and Arch Manning doesn't maybe look like the juggernaut that people thought he and that team would be at the beginning of the season. The only team in Ohio I kind of spoiled it there. The only team in college football that really truly scares me right now when looking through these green and yellow glasses and comparing to Oregon is those Buckeyes. The Buckeyes of Ohio State. Man, Matt Patricia's got that defense playing really good to start the season, and they got the best weapons in the country. Oregon fans know all about that. Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, Max Clare, Julian Sain is going to get better as the season goes on. No other team across the country scares me based on what we've seen over these first 2 weeks of the season. So maybe this year is the year. Why not us? Why not this year? Because look around at the rest of college football and look at what the Ducks are doing and look how impressive they've looked compared to maybe some of these other teams that a lot of people put over the Ducks to start the season. All right, let's dive into those 4 Ds of dominance this season that maybe could be reasons why the Ducks could make that 0 into a 1. I think the first thing you got to talk about is depth. I mean, Oregon has put out so many different players to start the season. I think it's because, for a couple of reasons. One is they're just blowing out teams, so that allows you to get more players on the field, of course, at the end of the game. But and I think another reason is they feel strong. Like, you put out first team guys, you put out second team guys. In some cases, you put out third team guys and be like, yeah, the teams that we're playing, we're going to be significantly better than them. But that's what you need. I think when I talk about depth, early season, mid-season, whatever, it's fine. Depth really comes into play late in the season, because you look at these last couple of years, you look at Bucky Irving got banged up, that Pac-12 championship game. You look at guys like Jordan James and Evan Stewart, and what happened when those guys weren't on the field at the biggest moments. Oregon maybe didn't have a lot of that above the line type of depth behind them to be able to kind of raise this thing to the absolute next level. But I look around this year, I look around at this roster, and I see a lot of that depth. I see a lot of that above the line talent this season, and being able to stay fresh for the end of the season and having those players playing at their top level. Like, it's a lot like the NFL, a lot like college football is turning into a lot like the NFL. And you need to have those players built for the long haul. You need players, and you need a roster that can go the distance. I believe how deep that this roster is, this is a roster that can go the distance compared to maybe some of the other teams in college football. They're going to have, with their freshness, they're going to have ability to wear teams down towards the end of the season. The second D of dominance, dudes, man. I talked about it shortly before the season started. Which guys on Oregon's roster are dudes, difference makers, that kind of thing. But I feel like you've just got more guys that can just take over a game this season. Look, all due respect to a guy like Bucky Irving, all due respect to a guy like Troy Franklin, I look around in this offense and I see Kenyon Sadiq. Once again, all due respect to the previous era, all due respect to somebody like Terrence Ferguson, Kenyon Sadiq just takes this to another level. His playmaking ability and his freakish athletic ability is a level on top of what we saw from someone like Terrence Ferguson, who is a high-level draft pick, by the way. Decorian Moore and his twitchy athletic ability, I mean, he's got that ability to go off for 150, 160, I believe so, in any given game. If he's on the field for 60 minutes, which we haven't seen a lot of from this top group to start the season, I mean, and this offensive line, man. Like, Jackson Powers Johnson, great player, of course, with the Raiders now. Josh Connerly, of course, with the Commanders. You've had great players, and Joe Moore Award finalist on this offensive line. But I look around at just the size and the tenacity of this group up front. This offensive line is just, it seems like it's on a different level. This seems like a group of dudes that are just going to be mean this all season long, are going to be tough to deal with, certainly all season long. You got so many guys across the field on offense and defense that seem like they can deliver those, this is going to date me a little bit, those Pontiac game-changing performances. Remember that? Remember that. I just think you've got so many weapons across the field that can just overwhelm a team, that can overwhelm a defense, that can overwhelm an offense. You have so many more guys. You've always had guys that could take over a game, but this team, I believe, has more guys that can take over a game any given week. Now, the dude of all dudes is Dante. And I think maybe the biggest reason why maybe 2025 could be the year based on what we've seen so far is old number 5 is Dante Moore, because the who has the best quarterback has the best chance to win the whole damn thing. Now, I'm going to make some comparisons right now that are very lofty, but I said when I was talking about depth, college football is a lot like the National Football League. And what do you need in the NFL? You need a quarterback. If you've got the best quarterback in the game, you always got a chance. And that's what I believe it is right now for Dante Moore. Guys like Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers when he was with the Green Bay Packers, I see Dante changing his arm angle and keeping the velocity, and it looks very Mahomey, right? I see that lightning quick release to be able to fire the ball down the field and accurate every single time, like we saw with Aaron Rodgers when he was wearing number 12 with the green and gold. We see all of that stuff from someone like Dante. And I look around the rest of the country, I look around at the quarterbacks, Dante's in that conversation already as one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. As long as he's healthy back there, Oregon's got a chance to beat anybody. But he's got to go out there and prove it. He's got to prove it against Penn State. He's got to prove it against Indiana. He's got to prove it against maybe some of these other teams that are on this Big Ten schedule this year. There's no doubt about that. But right now, it just put your life in Dante's hands, and he's going to grant you eternal happiness. It's almost what it seems like right now. Dante might not be around for very long. So you gotta appreciate that while it's here. And the last D is Dan Lanning. You could also talk about development when you talk about Dan right now, but Dan just seems like different. And we're going to talk about things that are different coming up in just a little bit. His confidence and his tenacity just seems at an absolutely different level. And what have we seen from Dan? He takes a step up on that ladder each and every single season. It's a team that keeps on climbing every single year. And from week 1 to week 2, I think we saw a big jump for Oregon. The starting point and the launching point for Oregon. I feel like it's just scratching the surface right now. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking this through green and yellow colored glasses, but Dan in year 4 just seems like something's brewing with him right now. And he's got just this other level of intensity surrounding him to get the job done this season. Let's talk about that word that I used to describe Dan Lanning's mentality just a few moments ago. Different. In order to be a championship team, you need to be different from everybody else. And when I look at this 2025 squad so far, yes, only through 2 games, I see things that just feel different to me at this point in the season. Let's dive right into it. We all know how last year began. The game against Idaho, slow start. Boise State, a walk-off field goal you needed to be able to beat a group of 5 team inside Autzen Stadium. And then you look to this season, these scorching starts have Oregon playing at a higher level and a higher floor than what they did last season. Dan Lanning talked about that after Saturday's win against Oklahoma State on what has contributed to the absolutely scorching beginnings of some of these games to start the season for the Ducks.
Yeah, we put a real emphasis on, our openers, our opening script. What plays do we feel really confident about that are going to get us positive yards regardless. And I think our offensive staff has done an unbelievable job game planning those situations and our players knowing exactly, what to expect. I always feel like, players, if they know what coach is about to call, that's when you have the most success. They're anticipating what's next. And when we're able to, dictate the situation to our guys, let them know this is how it's going to play out, and then it plays out that way, that's a real positive.
So I know last year Dylan Gabriel came in and he had a ton of experience, right? But this was, last season, 2024, was his first season within the Will Stein offense. And once again, we come back to how big of a deal it was for Dante to go back to school, to be able to learn this offense for 1 year. So when he got into this thing, when spring started, he already had a 1 year head start from the knowledge point of view, and we've seen his pre-snap reads, we've seen everything that kind of has correlated with his knowledge of what Stein is doing right now. Him going back to school, I think, has played a big part on the hot start that Oregon has been able to get out to begin the season. And Will Stein, man, he is just, man, he deserves a lot of credit, I think, for this. I think he's certainly in the conversation as one of the best coordinators in the games. But a hot start like this and being able to get out to those types of leads right away and build that experience for others is going to make this team a lot better down the stretch. And it certainly is a lot different from what we saw last season. And I think the higher floor to start the season, of course, could equal a higher ceiling, but we got to find out to see if that is indeed the case. Number 2, downfield blocking. Okay, this team, and they talked about it on the broadcast, is very much a no block, no rock type of mentality is on display. The effort and enthusiasm, maybe I just didn't notice it in previous years, but it just didn't look this way before. You didn't see these types of convoys. You didn't see these types of, the Sadiqs and the Decorian Moores and some of these other guys. You didn't see them pancaking and driving people into the ground, regardless of opponent. You didn't see that last year. You didn't see it 2 years ago. You haven't really seen it before. And that's really stood out as different. I'm going to talk more about this later when I get to the TSOW text line, so I'll save more. But that has just, it stood out to a lot of people. And it certainly stood out to me as being very different on this team this season. And I want to talk about the secondary, because that defensive back size and skill, it just looks different. I mean, you've got Iffy at 6'2", Sione at 6'4", Kingston Lopa is like 6'4" as well, Brandon Finney's 6'2", Dylan Thieneman 6'2", Naeem Offord, I meant to say, is 6'2", and Dylan Thieneman is just another type of presence that Oregon has not had at the safety position as well. I mentioned Kingston Lopa. Boy, Lopa and Aaron Flowers, they just love to lay the wood, man. They love to get out that lumber and just smack some people around, specifically Kingston Lopa. I've seen him attack so far when he's been able to get into the game this season. And that size and that skill from this secondary, miles different what we saw last season. Miles different of what we saw 2 years ago from some of these transfer defensive backs that have been on this Oregon team. Last thing that's different, we got some bullies up front. Like Alex Harkey, I want to make sure that I highlight him right now. I'm a big listener to the QB11 show. They do a great job. Best Oregon podcast out there for my money. And I'm going to try to keep this PG as much as I can. QB's out there and saying, when he's talking about Alex Harkey, he's saying, this guy is just he's just a playground a-hole out there. These guys take no prisoners up front. And I've been able to see that. The concern maybe coming into the season was, hey, you got all these transfer offensive linemen, really talented. They've played elsewhere. How are they going to be able to gel together? They've been able to gel together really well, and that's been different about this team. And as a unit, I think that this is, so far in what we've seen, a lot left to prove, but I think this could be one of the best units that we've seen on an Oregon offensive line, at the very least, in some time. We are going to finish off today's show with a little audience interaction on the TSOW Talk and Text line with 4 text messages from viewers and listeners. You can get involved on the TSOW Talk and Text line by leaving a text or a voicemail, 541-357-6390. The flock is nationwide. We start with Zach from Atlanta, Georgia. He says, man, where do I start? I know we say this every year, especially the last 2, but this team, man, just feels so different. I don't think a casual understands how massive it is to put up 69 on a Power 4 program. It just looks like NCAA on freshman mode. So many players, I don't even know which one's my favorite yet. I will say it looks like Benson is definitely emerging at wide receiver too. Well, you're going to have time to pick out your favorite player, Zach, and you're certainly going to have options. Now, he went into how he thinks and believes this team just feels different, which I just talked about here on TSOW. So Zach and I were certainly on the same page across 2 different time zones over there. But I want to dive into something that he said at the end, where it looks like Malik Benson is emerging as wide receiver 2. I completely agree with that 1,000%. I think that he provides a little bit of a different skill set than we see out of DeCorian Moore, a little bit of a different skill set that we see out of Gary Bryant Jr., and that's good. I love the variety of skill set on this team right now. I think the versatility that he possesses, the speed that he possesses, the veteran presence I think that he possesses, and I think just his motivation to be able to prove, things didn't work out at Florida State, things didn't work out at Alabama. We know the talent has been there. Okay, we know where he's been ranked. We know the type of schools that he has gone to. And it's certainly looking like Oregon is this opportunity under Ross Douglas for him to be able to really emerge. Right now, it certainly looks like DeCorian and Malik are that X and Z on the outside. Gary Bryant Jr., of course, is on the inside as well. I can't wait to see what we see from Malik the rest of the season. I think we're going to see some big things. And that's going to create some interesting coverages because people are looking at Kenyon Sadiq. People are looking at DeCorian Moore. Hey, we got to take these guys out of the play. What happens if old number 4? What happens if Malik Benson continues to get momentum, continues to get confidence, continue to take his game to another level? Now all of a sudden, he becomes the big weapon on that side, and then what do? You just put your palms up at that point on defense. It's like, who do you cover at that point in time? So thank you, Zach, for the question. Let's head on to our second one. That was really a comment more than a question, but I digress. This is Josh from Springfield, Oregon. So we go from Atlanta, far away on the East Coast, to right in the neighborhood of Autzen Stadium there. Josh says, can't get over how well the receivers are blocking on the edge. More dominant than any unit that I've seen on Oregon on the exterior. Once again, these are things that I'm talking about in today's show. But I think the biggest beneficiary, or at the very least one of the biggest beneficiaries of that great blocking on the perimeter, is Gary Bryant Jr. Okay, because I just talked about it with Malik, and I've talked about it many times with Dak. Those are guys that are out in terms of the route tree. They're going to be able to get 15 yards down the field, 20 plus yards down the field. Those are going to be mainly your more deep threats. But when it comes to those screen passes, these short concepts where these perimeter blockers are able to get out in front, that's, I think, where Gary Bryant Jr. comes into play. He's very much a catch and run type of wide receiver. I mean, look at that convoy, man. And he said it during the post-game press conference on that play where all 5 of those offensive linemen got out in front. He's like, man, I thought there was another guy closer behind me, so I wanted to run faster, but I probably could have slowed down and wait for things to develop a little bit more. But he's that short yardage type of guy and you even saw it a couple of years ago in that game against Arizona State. And we've seen it this year where he was able to catch the ball, get into the open field. Not only have the blockers been able to get out there, but he's been able to shed some tackles as well. So I think he's going to be the biggest beneficiary of that great perimeter blocking this season. Thank you, Josh, for the text message. 2 to go. Let's head out back to the East Coast. Now, this is Coy from North Carolina. Coy, thank you for your service. I want to say that to start off. By way of Coos Bay, Oregon, originally from the beautiful coast out there. Here's what Coy has to say. So something I think I've noticed, haven't gone back and looked at all the games from last year, but it stands out to me. Seems like we're taking more shots down the field earlier this year. I know we're saving a lot for Penn State, but it seems like they trust Dante to throw down the field more than the last couple of years with the other quarterbacks. I like to see that. Keep doing what you're doing. East Coast Duck, loving your show. We're going to keep on going here at TSOW. Now, he says he's talking about the confidence in Dante, and I think this is specifically game 2, because in game 1, it looked a lot like Gabriel-style offense, Nick-style offense. It was a lot of that short feed the studs type of offense that we've seen from Will Stein over the years, but Will has shown the ability to be able to adapt. When you have a talent like Dante that's been in the system for a year, that's as good as he is, you need to be able to take advantage of that. So you have a base of what Will Stein has, and then being able to adjust to the sheer talent pushing the ball down the field compared to what you had specifically last season with Dylan Gabriel, where the middle of the field wasn't open as much, and those darts down the middle of the field wasn't maybe the option that it is this season under Dante Moore, Will Stein's ability to expand his offense and to adjust of what he has specifically at the quarterback position is what makes him such an elite coordinator. So you got to give Will Stein his props for playing into the skill set and into the talent of one Dante Moore back there. We are going to end today with a guy that's been with me since the BTT days from last year. My guy Bud from Los Gatos, California, out there in the Bay Area in the 408. Bud says, love the reaction show from Saturday. I expect similar results when we play Northwestern on Saturday. I wish we had a tougher test before Penn State. Okay, Bud, here's the fact of the matter. There are more murder shows coming. This is not gonna be a situation where Oregon's gonna let up. They're gonna keep on going. They're gonna keep on mashing the gas. I think that is abundantly clear. There is gonna be more love coming from me. There is going to be more love coming from other podcasters within the Oregon community. There is going to be more love coming from the national media as well. This is a test for Dan Lanning to really embrace the whole rat poison mentality that Nick Saban had. Getting that rat poison out of the program and keeping focused on Oregon week in and week out and not having... Oregon has proven under Dan that they remain ultra-focused and beat the teams that they're supposed to beat every single time they play them. But now this seems like, we talked about different, this seems to be at a different level. So we'll see, and I have all the confidence in the world. This is not a concern by any means, but I'm very curious to see, especially with these next 2 weeks against Northwestern and Oregon State look like. Are they going to put 70 on one of these teams? I wouldn't put it past them. I think, on right now. And then, like, groups that you view are young, untested, and unproven, they're going to remain that way. Because Northwestern and Oregon State are not going to give them any sort of test. So, like Bud said, he wishes they had a tougher test. But here's the thing. Penn State does not have... Like, Oregon has a more difficult schedule, which is not difficult. But Oregon has a more difficult schedule than Penn State does right now. Penn State is playing all kinds of patsies. But if I'm the Ducks right now, like, Penn State has a bye before they play Oregon. If I'm Oregon, I want as much time out there as I can. So let's keep the momentum going. Penn State, if they want to take a bye, great. If they want to watch more Oregon film, great. That's fantastic. But I want as much on the field experience as I can get prior to what will be at least I think the biggest regular season game of the season when they take on PSU in the whiteout in Happy Valley. Thank you, Bud. Thank you all for the questions. That will wrap up another edition here of TSOW. Coming up on Thursday, we are going to have a scouting report, preview, and prediction of Oregon's matchup on the lake as they take on the Northwestern Wildcats in Evanston. So, until then, I'm Ted LaRue. This has been That Show Out West.